Hi, today I wanted to show you three of my favorite things in Wix. Three tools that I use all the time that are kind of hidden that might come in handy for other designers and people using Wix. The first one is the toolbar. And the toolbar, a few tools here. There's actually a couple things that I love in this toolbar. One, if you have a very long page, let's say like this, and it goes down forever, when you duplicate a item or a strip or a section, sometimes all the time, it puts it into the next available spot way down on the page. So if I click on this and I hit just Command D there on my Mac, now it has put this way down here at the bottom. Well, that's not where I wanted it. I wanted it back where I had that first box. So if I want to find out where I want to place something, you can look here, make sure you turn on your toolbar, and use the Y coordinates. These Y coordinates are basically where it is in the vertical placement of the page. So if I look at this one, it's 2919. This one down below is, let's see, it should update, 2919. Actually, why is it saying that's the same? Oh, no, they're different. But, oh, this one took me down here. If I wanted to change this one, we could bring this back up by putting 2000 or wherever it is roughly in the page, and it will bring it up, way up. So you don't have to sit there and scroll up and up and up to get something to the top of the page. I'm going to undo this because I'm just showing this for an example, but that is a really good tool, this Y coordinate on your toolbar. Very handy to have because you can move things very quickly up to the top of the page or in the middle of the page, depending on where you are. And again, to kind of get a gauge of where you might want to move it, you can use the placement of these anchor tags if you have any of those on the page, or look at a text box and look at the Y coordinates of that, and that'll give you an idea of where you can place it. It doesn't have to be exact because once you get it there, you can kind of move it around in Wix, which is great. But at least it gets it to the part of the page where you don't have to click and scroll, drag it and scroll up and drag it and scroll up for 10 minutes to get it to the top of a very long page. Another really great tool in Wix on this same toolbar is the width and the height tool. Oftentimes I create multiple text boxes so that I can break them into columns. This also helps with mobile view because we can move them around. I have like the headline separate from the subhead, separate from these paragraphs. And the reason this is because this gives you a lot more flexibility in the mobile view, and having columns, this is the best way to do it in Wix. But sometimes you do this and you might get your boxes misaligned or they're not the same size or width. Let's look at the width of these two right here in this toolbar. And again, you can make the toolbar appear if it has been hidden by clicking up here under tools. And then you can compare to see if this box is the same width as this box. And it is. You can also check their Y coordinate placement to make sure that they're at the same level. You can also double click, or I shouldn't say double click, shift click multiple items and use these really great alignment tools in the toolbar. So these are just little things that I use all the time that people might not think about, using these X and Y coordinates as well as the width and height coordinate or numbers. Another thing that I really like is, let's say you have a whole bunch of boxes and you want them to be all the same size. Well, if you click on this, okay, I want to change this. This one's not right. I don't like this one. So I can click on the right one. I can highlight this width number, so the 410. And if I click on the next item, it automatically applies that width to it. It's another really handy tool that helps you kind of go quickly to make everything consistent without having to copy and paste. Again, you have to click on the item and then click on the width to have it highlighted, but then whatever else I click on from there, it's going to size it at that same width. A great little hidden feature of Wix. Another feature I really love too is the editing tool in Wix. There's a Wix editor, photo editor. If I click on any image, for example, this logo has a white box around it because it's a JPEG. Well, I don't want to have that white as part of this. I want it to show through like these do, where there's no white box around the shape. So if I click here on Edit Image, you can come to this little cutout feature, and then you can say Auto Cut Out. It automatically, usually if it's something like this with a logo, and again, this is a little bit low res because it's just a logo from one of their sponsors or partnerships, but I'm using this small, so don't worry about the blurriness of this because it's a small file. But you'll see that it puts these little checkered items or dots behind it. That means that it's transparent. So now if I hit save, it will drop in a nice version of this that is now cropped out, does not have a white border around it, looks much nicer on the page. You can also modify it because I see that it changed the little light bulb in this. And let's go to change image. We can go back to our original image. Actually, I'm just going to hit undo. That'll take me back to the original image. And again, come in here to edit image. I'm going to do cutout and do auto cutout, but then you can refine the cutout by removing anything that might have been cut out that you didn't want. So in this case, that little light bulb. Now I can hit apply, hit save, and that will drop that new image version on the page. And something to keep in mind too, which is another great feature of Wix, it does not save over your original file. So this is a new file that now you have access to. If I click here on change image, it is going to show me that new image that I've created. Now I'm going to delete this one because that one I think had the white was kind of removed from it. And it's hard to see a lot of times until you put it on the page. They do show there's a little bit of a blue border around this. That's to imply that it's transparent, but a lot of times put it on the page. That's the best way. Oh, and I just did something too that I wanted to show. This is another great tip, is your download feature. Another great reason to resize or edit images is if you're using an image on the page and you have hundreds of images in your media library and you cannot find it. One downside to Wix is that if I click here on change image, it doesn't show me what image I'm using currently. So these are here because I just recently edited them, but a lot of times these images might be buried at the bottom of the list. And if you don't have them named with anything searchable, like this, for example, is a screenshot. I really should rename this. Let's call this the inclusive and welcoming to all therapy den. That helps me because down the road I can search for therapy den or whatever and find that image. If it doesn't have a good name, it's impossible to find. But that said, if you cannot find the image that you have selected, sometimes they may even be from Shutterstock or Unsplash or media from Wix, so they're not even in your site files. To get them into your site file by simply editing them, and you can come in here and click on crop and edit, or let's say you have an image, so this water image back here, I think this one was from Unsplash. I don't have it in my image editor. If I click here on change strip background and I come here to image, it's not going to show me that image that was here. So what I can do to get that image into my media library so I can find it and use it, edit it, etc., is I can click on this and then under this change strip background panel, click on this little edit icon here. This is going to launch, again, this photo studio. I can make just a very subtle adjustment to it, or I can crop it just by 1 pixel. And then if I hit save, that's going to make a new version of that image and put it into my media library. So now I can find it and now I can name it and all that. Because it was Unsplash, it's never going to show up in my site files until I do something like this. But now if I click here on image, it's going to be in my site files so I can access it. Again, this is a good time to rename your image to be whatever you want it to be. And you can also use the editor for a lot of other tools, such as, and there's a few different ways to get into it. You can edit it from the page, or you can come into your media library and click here on crop and edit. There's also some great filters and other adjustments beyond the cutout that you can do. So you can use a filter to run an effect on it. They have some pretty nice filters, I think. You can do like a black and white, high contrast newspaper look. You can do a lesser one. You can do a more, tropical, moody, all these things. So feel free to play around with this, and this also will save a new version of this image into your Wix library for future use. There's also some of your kind of Photoshop type sliders that allow you to increase contrast and do different effects with it. And you can also use this auto enhance feature that just tries to make it look better. It's kind of an, I would say, AI function where it looks at the picture and decides how best to improve it. This sometimes improves it, sometimes not. I certainly like to use these adjustments and filters and the cropping to do other things with it. You can also add elements such as text or overlays. I wish it had just a photo or an image, I'm sorry, not image, a color overlay, but you cannot do that here. However, let's leave and get out of this. If I have this as the background, you can do a color overlay by simply reducing the image opacity and choosing a color behind it that you want it to look like. So this is how you would do a color overlay with an image in your background. So those are some of my favorite tools of Wix that are somewhat hidden. These are great tips for people who design all the time and run into some of these problems with making things consistent or moving things up or down on a page. The toolbar comes in very handy. And of course, this image editor option, when you click on edit image, this is a really great tool that gives you a lot of options such as cutting out, running filters, changing the brightness, the color, and so forth. And then of course you can also use on strips anyway, and backgrounds, you can also use this wonderful settings option where you can reduce the opacity of any picture and change the background behind it, and it kind of does a nice photo fade with a color overlay, or it's really an image overlay of a color, but that's the same effect. So happy Wixing. Keep watching picklewix.com for more Wix tips.